Okay, let's expand on the Examp 1 E7 class and write something a little more functional, which I'll call Year E7. Here's the class def file for the Year E7 class. It starts with the class def line and the name of the class, and finally ends at the bottom with an end. The set access attribute of the properties is set to private, which limits a user's ability to set the properties once the object has been constructed. The class has three properties. Value is 1, leap year is false, and then a 1 by 12 array of the number of days in each month of the year. Next, let's look at a methods block. It begins with the word methods and ends with an end. And on this slide, we'll only consider what's called the constructor method, which has the same name as the class name, Year E7. This constructor method will allow users to construct instances of the class, in other words objects, by calling it with an integer valued year as the argument, YV. What will be returned is an object of class Year E7 in the variable Y. Just beyond the first line of the constructor, a default value of the object already exists, and the name is given by whatever you've specified as the output argument variable. So here, a variable Y exists, it's of class Year E7, and its property values are all the default values seen above. Next, let's look at the code that runs when a user passes in a single argument. First, the argument is checked to see if it's a scalar, numeric, an integer, and greater than 0. And if case, then the value property is set to that year. The leap year property is set to a logical, depending on whether or not this represents a leap year. And if it is a leap year, then the M property's second entry is changed from 28 to 29. So what's happening here? Well, the constructor is doing some simple error checking on the input argument YV and correctly defining any property values away from their default value. The next case considered is when the input argument is already a Year E7 object, and then the constructor simply passes that back unaltered. And finally, anything else is considered an error. And right now we'll just use a simple error message, invalid YV. The other possibility is that there are no input arguments, in which case a default value of the object is returned because, as we outlined earlier, before the second line of the constructor method, a default value of the object already exists with name given by the output argument variable. Let's try this all out. Over in Matlab, let's start by creating a Year E7 object for the year 1900. I'll leave the semicolon off and we'll see the display. It's not a leap year as expected, and no methods are listed. Let's try 2000. It is a leap year. 2008. 2013. How about a fractional year? That gets the error. Let's go back and create a correct one. Now let's pass that to the constructor. The argument is already a Year E7 object, it's just passed back unchanged. Finally, although we can access the fields, we can't change them because the set access attribute of all the properties is private. Therefore, the value of an object's properties can't be set outside the methods.